Hello everybody. Today I want to talk about what I think a senior software engineer actually is and how you can actually rightfully become one, so to say. Before we get into it, I'm not trying to say that I have the single definition of what a senior software engineer is. Rather, I have perspective of my own experience in this industry and what I've seen at the different companies that I've worked with and worked at, and how they hire the engineers and how they look at a senior role. So yeah, first of all, it is about years of experience. So that's generally what seniority means. It means more experience, which means more time generally in the industry. That is the obvious answer to what makes and what defines a senior software engineer. That's it. That's the video. Cut. Kind of. No, not really. To me, it's not as simple as that. The time itself is really just a measurement, and it's what can increase the probability of somebody being or becoming senior, of course. However, if someone has simply built the same kind of website, for example, over and over again for years, using the same technologies, same frameworks, everything is the same, then they will be really good at building that kind of website. But that doesn't make them, in my eyes, a senior web developer, for example. Seniority in itself means not just a certain level of depth, but also a certain level of breadth as well. And what then defines whether if you're a senior or not is not as simple as the number of projects done, the number of technologies you've used, or the number of languages you know. To me, you can say that you're a senior when you have the experience enough to make you comfortable in working in pretty much any kind of project in that specific field. So it's not just a general definition. That to me is a general definition, but there is much more about it's much more about context. So that is, it might be a bit more biased towards software engineering in this case, which I understand. But to me, that, as I said before, is the most general definition that I could think of. But that's just it. It's just a general definition of seniority. It's also very contextual, as I said. For example, web development. You might have worked on hundreds of website projects, built PHP websites, node-based websites with CSS preprocessors and TypeScript. That will make you, in my eyes, a senior web developer, because you can jump into a lot of different website projects and be comfortable contributing and working on them. But throw that same person into a complicated distributed system, for example, a payment system, with tens of services and manages concurrent writes and is distributed across the globe on different data centers, then that person to me is not senior in that context. But if that person were to learn backend programming, maybe the basics of distributed systems, maybe the person learns CI/CD setup that they use in the project, as well as how to work with Docker together with Kubernetes, maybe even learn how they got the PostgreSQL database set up to be distributed on multiple data centers and are still able to provide full ACID properties, not super easy by the way, then that person has gained a lot of breadth as well as depth within those new areas, and can now have a more senior software engineer role because of that new experience. So does that role, does it really matter? Seniority, the senior role, does it matter? Now that you know this, do you think it matters? Why do you care if you're a senior or not? Is it just because it's cool, or because you earn more? Sure, you will obviously have a higher salary than a junior developer or a software engineer, but what does that actually mean for the company that hires you? It means that they have higher expectations of you compared to someone with a junior role. Those expectations will definitely differ depending on the company and the role itself, obviously, but the biggest difference between the roles is, to me, responsibility. You are expected as someone with more breadth and depth in your experience to take more responsibility. What that means for a software engineer usually is to take part in decision-making processes, much more, and involve yourself in discussions. For example, as part of a team, you're expected to deliver features based on certain demands from business. Those features might be defined in terms of how they should work, but most likely not which technologies to choose or which frameworks or specific implementation details to think about. That's where the senior role comes in. with the experience of working in these kinds of projects before, you are the one that can help the team decide just how to implement a feature in the best way possible. So this is important to keep in mind as you strive towards a more senior role in general in your career. The pay raise is not just for the name of the role or for the status or for any fancy technical skills that you might have developed over the years. It's the pay raise means, just like in most other industries or roles, more responsibility and higher expectations. So with all that said, how do you become a software engineer, a senior software engineer? As we've concluded, it's not just about years of experience, it's about what you've done with that time that you worked. Have you achieved not just depth in one area, but in more than one area? Have you taken responsibilities through making decisions for a project or projects? Maybe built a crucial service that makes a product run just as businesses or that business wish it would? If not, these are some great things to do in order to become a senior software engineer. Start by getting really good in one area, and if possible, combine that with other areas in order to not just reach some depth, but breadth as well. For example, get really good at front-end building, like some really good kick-ass UIs, and combine that by learning how to build APIs and work with databases and know how to deploy those web applications to the cloud. Now, not only can you build a nice web UI, but you know how to integrate that with the data that it needs and how to deploy it so the users can actually use it. Continue learning new versions of how to build web UIs, different frameworks, go from Vue to React to Svelte to Solid. Use different CSS preprocessors like Sass. Less is the most basic ones, then go into vanilla extract, maybe use, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, there are a bunch of different preprocessors you can learn. Learn new API design standards, learn new database formats, go from MongoDB to a SQL-based one. So go from a object storage over to relational database storage. Maybe learn how to deploy on-prem setup with some Circle CI, maybe Kubernetes. This, in the end, is not just how you grow, but how you can truly become senior. By gaining both depth and breadth, giving you more tools in your tool belt to use in the next project you are assigned, helping you make better decisions and ultimately building a better product or service. So that is, to me, a definition of what a senior is. It's someone with a vast amount of experience, not just within a deep subject, but also a lot of subjects. And of course, the depth and the breadth varies. But the more breadth you have, the more experience in terms of different tools you've worked with. That's pretty much it. I hope you found this video helpful or insightful, or at least a bit entertaining to watch me or listen to me ramble. If you think I missed anything, or if you have your own view of what defines a senior software engineer, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Of course, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.